Welcome to our first episode of The Wealthy Blueprint Brick by Brick, featuring Marissa Correa, my lovely business partner, and myself, and we'll be giving you up-to-date real estate advice, tips, and just keeping into the know of what's going on.
So this is going to be very broad-based. So if you want to have a personal consultation call with us, you can book a call with us by using the link in the description, and we will do a 20-minute consultation call with you.
Now, Marissa, today we wanted to kind of talk about, in our first episode, what's been going on all over social media, on the news and the media. And a big part of that is Budget 2024 and the housing plan announcements and advancements. What do you kind of want to get into today?
Yeah, so it was released a couple of weeks ago. There's a lot inside of it, but I think we should highlight the main ones that affect the housing market. So do you want to get into the Renters' Bill of Rights first?
Sure. So when we're talking about the Renters' Bill of Rights, it put a sour taste into a lot of investors' mouths.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I do kind of support it.
Me too, because I feel like we're so about tenants all the time, like Renters' Bill of Rights. What about the Landlord's Bill of Rights, We're very all about tenants, and that's great. Like, some of it is okay, but yeah, let's get into it in details.
One of the proposals is that renters will be able to opt in to have their, rent payments done on time affect their credit score.
Which is good. I think that's a good thing.
It's a great thing. However, in the start, what they're saying is it's an opt-in program. Yes. So how does that work for landlords, where it's like, if Sarah is a great person that pays her bills on time, of course she's going to opt in. Of course she wants it to affect her credit score. But then people that don't necessarily pay their rent on time, they're not going to opt into it.
Yeah, that's true. But I think also people that aren't paying their rent on time probably aren't paying their credit card bills on time, maybe not their phone bills. And so I think their credit report will reflect that. And to be honest, that's where we're at right now. Their credit reports we require them in order to, vet the tenants. And so I don't think it really changes much at the moment. I think if they were to make this mandatory across the board moving forward, that could be really good. And it could be somewhat, not a game changer, but it could help, especially I think it'll help tenants that actually pay their bills on time to move into a space where they can own a home.
So one of the things that they pointed out in regards to this Renters' Bill of Rights is the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation said there's such low vacancy rates, but such high increases in rent cost. So why do you think that they're proposing this as part of making housing more affordable in the Canadian housing plan?
Yeah, I'm not really sure how that really ties in. Just most of the whole Renters' Bill of Rights, it's kind of like fluff to me, Like, they also brought up, what was the other thing, that they wanted to make a national standard lease agreement, which seems strange to me as well, because every province has their own rights and regulations for renting, right? Like, Alberta has different rules than Ontario. And so Ontario has a standard lease, so I don't really see how we can execute a national standard lease. And then the other thing that Trudeau brought up was he wants to implement requirements for landlords to disclose historical prices for their units when they're renting them out. And I mean, we have MLS. We could already see that if they've done it publicly, like if they did it through Facebook or a private, rental, then we can't see that. But at the end of the day, market rent is market rent. I'm not really sure how disclosing the past prices is going to benefit the tenant at all. If someone's been living there for like 10 years and they're paying $1,000 and now it's worth $1,500, just saying that the last tenant paid $1,000 is not going to...
That's true. I think,
do anything.
If you have a long-standing tenant and then, let's say your building was built after November 15th, 2018, right? You can increase your rent by anything. But for people that, let's say you went to this place in Milton and you're renting for $3,000 and it was built in 2020. And then the next year, your person's like, you know what? I'm actually going to change it to $4,300 because they want to kick you out. I think that's where this comes into play. So you're aware. I think it's those rent evictions where people want to get people out, where they can spend more. But again, those would be on properties that were before November 15, 2018.
Yeah. Yeah, because if it's built before 2018, you have to go by the government standard of increasing rent, right?
Yeah. And if there's low vacancy already, how does this help in building more people to come in? I just don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get it too. I think it's just I think the government is just trying to show that they're doing something without actually really doing it to gain votes because they're really low in the polls. And so a lot of these policies that come out tend to be just more like fluff than anything. And I think this is just one of them.
Yeah.
To be honest. All right, next one, mortgage fraud.
Mortgage fraud.
So, mortgage fraud, for those that don't know, is very prevalent in the industry. People use inflated income documents, fraudulent documents to basically say they make more money than they actually do. And therefore, the banks are able to approve them for a higher purchase price, which ends up increasing the price for everyone across the board.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
I think, and this is my personal opinion, that this is one of those things that the government's proposing that's not going to go through. Because if you're going to have the CRA verify this, don't you think banks would have jumped on this like years ago? Wouldn't they have pushed? Like, banks are huge policy advocates, right? Like, they are big banks, they collect interest. They would have pushed for this years ago. But parts of me think that banks know mortgage fraud exists and people are lending from them and they just care about the money.
Yeah, if people are making their payments and they're collecting money, I don't think banks really care.
Yeah, and like, to be honest, sure, people can do that with their incomes. And yes, like, there are strategies the government needs to take in order to make housing more affordable. And you can't get mad about that because, like, depending on what side of the coin you're on, you're going to be upset about something. And that's the basis of it, right? But if you're going to take away, getting CRA to verify things, that's going to take a hit on the banks because what's going to happen is, fine, people won't go through banks. They'll pay more interest and go to B lenders or even like someone else, private lending. But that means that banks are not going to get this money. So why would they let their profits tank? Especially when you see acquisitions of like RBC taking over HSBC, who had the lowest interest rates per mortgages. And now what? Like, we're just like, okay, let's let go of like, I don't know what fraud mortgages constitute in terms of percentages, but they're just going to give away that revenue.
Yeah, that's a good point. So it'll be really interesting to see if this actually does come into play because the housing minister was saying that we are at the early stages of it and it's going to take a while for it to actually be rolled out and executed. So we're probably thinking like a year from now, maybe it'll get introduced if it does at all, right? Like as you were saying. But even like let's play out that scenario. Like let's say somebody could right now get a fraudulent mortgage and they can, I don't know, get an $800,000 mortgage. But now if they don't do it, they get like $600,000. Okay. But if they were to go to a B lender now, their interest rate would be so much higher. Well, not so much higher, but 1%. And then plus you need 20% down. Maybe a lot of these people don't have the 20% down to work with the B lender. So I think it would, even if we were to go that route, I think that it would still be, it wouldn't put as much pressure on housing prices because now the amount that they can afford is still less than they were if they were with an A lender because of the mortgage rates and because they need 20% down to work with the B lender to have favorable terms. Yeah, you can work with B lenders with less than 20% down, but it's not favorable terms at all, right?
So it is a plan to make mortgages more affordable. I just don't think the big players involved are going to allow for it.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see because, like to your point, why would it take them so long to roll this out? It's been happening for decades.
And I mean, like, if the housing minister is literally saying, like, we know this happens, and so like banks know it happens.
Of course,
everyone knows it happens.
Yes.
So then, like, why haven't you addressed all this here? It's because of the money involved.
Yeah, it's so prevalent that, you would think they would have done something by now if they had plans to actually do something.
Exactly.
So more fluff.
But I will say anything involving the CRA and my taxes and my privacy. I mean, like what now? Any mortgage agent I go to can now look at my financials and my CRA and what I claim, right? Yeah. Like, what are you? It's always like big ideas, but when you get down to the nitty gritty of like what's involved in those ideas, that the problems become because like, okay, so now CIBC can see it. And then like how much of my privacy am I giving up as an individual or that I'm already giving up? And like, to be honest, the CRA, like the government already takes enough taxes from me.
Yeah. Well, I think Sean Fraser actually mentioned that it's gonna take a while to roll out for that exact reason to maintain people's privacy. But I guess it would have to be like somebody that engineers it, where like I would guess like the bank, the mortgage agent, the underwriter would just like input the income and then it would just be like verified alternatively through like a website that says, yes, it matches the CRA. You know what I mean? So it's not like people at the bank would actually have access to your CRA account. It would be more like it's just a verification tool that, yes, the numbers match up.
Yeah, like you can just pull it up from like the back or something.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen. And I think we're going to spend all this money creating these tools and these platforms. And then the government's going to be overturned and somebody else is going to come into power and they're going to scrap it. So it's just going to be another waste of taxpayers' money.
Yeah. I think a lot of these things, like if the conservatives come into power, which right now it's looking like they will next year, a lot of these policies that the Liberal government is working towards, it's just going to be down the drain. Tax dollars spent, and nothing's done with it. So, yeah, that happens all the time in politics, right?
Yeah.
All right. Halal mortgages.
Halal mortgages.
So, for those that don't know, the government launched halal mortgages as part of like the regular banks will be having this as another product that they offer, and on social media, people are going wild. They're saying, well, I'm going to convert to Islam now so I don't have to pay interest. And people are just so misinformed.
Seriously, halal mortgages already exist within some Canadian lenders. Hello. I mean, like people have been financing houses, and how people are speaking of it as like, wow, I'm going to convert so I can get an interest-free loan. Like, we have human rights in this country. You can't say per particular faith or religion they're going to get one advantage over another just based on like this. And so my perspective on it is a lot of people have been putting buzzwords and things just to like amp up the Islamophobia, amp up the racism and the comment sections, and like pretty popular people have like posted this, which is kind of problematic.
Yeah, I agree.
But it just applies with Islamic principles and teachings. And that teaching is that you shouldn't receive and pay interest. And what they do is take the interest out of the equation and just add it to the lump sum. And there's different types that I'm not a mortgage agent. You're not a mortgage agent. We're not going to get into it, but we know a great one that we can refer you to.
Yes.
But a lot of countries do this. And I think it's another option of getting people into home ownership and affordability if that means like they can buy into the economy.
Yeah, and I'm just really surprised that people would actually think that the banks would be giving mortgages for free. Like the bank is a business. They want to make money.
Exactly.
And so they're just trying to get a piece of the pie because other lenders are doing this, and they're like, okay, well, we're actually neglecting a whole sect of people. Let's offer this product as well so we can get a piece of the pie as well. That's really what it is. And instead of having a mortgage with interest, like you said, it just that sum of that interest is just put onto the mortgage in a different way.
Like
there's
a fee charge, right?
Yeah.
But really, I'm no mortgage agent. I'm going to say that repeatedly, and math does not math for me. but it's just an additional amount, and sometimes I feel like you're paying more, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm sure it probably is more because they probably would take advantage of you because you can only get a certain type of mortgage, and only a select few banks actually offer that. Not banks, but lenders offer this. Maybe now it might be good for Muslims because maybe with the bigger banks introducing this, maybe now it's going to be a product that's more available. Then maybe it'll make things cheaper, right?
Yeah, and I think it's not just like, I know they termed it or coined it halal mortgages, but in like Judaism and Christianity, it's like you're supposed to not charge like an overt amount of interest. That's just a principle, right? Yeah. And so I think a lot of religious sects will benefit from this. If more and more lenders are offering it up, they'll have an opportunity to build their faith while also participating in the economy, which I think is great for Canada as a whole.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, let's get into the last topic that we wanted to cover today. And you broke this down for me. Okay, so let's talk about capital gains and this new inclusion rate.
Yes. So for those that don't know, capital gains are calculated on when you sell any property, not just property, actually investments, so even stocks. So right now, you have to pay taxes on 50% of the profits. Now, the government is proposing, which should take in effect, like I believe in like 3 months, that any profits above $250,000, you have to pay taxes on 66.7% of those profits. So now it went from half to 2/3. And this could have some like dramatic changes to the way we work in the industry, right? Because there's so many people that are holding on to properties that they might have had for like years, and anything that was purchased pre-pandemic has gone up in equity $250K easy, especially when you're talking about detached. Condos, no, but detached, yeah, right? And so this could like affect the way that they want to go about their portfolio. They might hold it and just start to refinance it instead of, putting them on the market, which actually goes against what the government wants, which is to make more homes more affordable. We're actually constricting the supply by doing this.
So remember I was telling you when we were prepping for this that the like doctors, right? So the Canadian Medical Association actually are opposed to capital gains. And then we were trying to figure out like, why are doctors so pissed? So I was looking more into it, and doctors don't receive a pension. So for example, if they've made these investment properties as they're building their practice and bought into properties, shares and things like that, when they're selling them off to then like retire, that's why they're so opposed to it, because they're going to have to pay all these taxes on what's going to be like their lifetime living, right? Yeah. So we're already at a shortage. And I mean, one episode we can get into how my feelings are about the healthcare system. But if we're in a shortage of doctors coming into this economy and kind of country, so then now we're just pushing people away as well. But on the other end, this, through the Liberal government, they state won't affect 99.8% of residents because primary residences are not getting capital gains, right? Wow. These are just for investments. But what that means is less people are going to be putting more money into the economy. And as you said, did you talk about your loophole? Where the more people now are actually just going to refinance.
Yes,
so they don't pay capital gains and then put it into other properties, and they're just going to hold.
Yeah, because now for investors to sell, it's a new cost associated with selling. So you have to pay real estate agents, you have to discharge your mortgage, all the fees that are associated with it. Now it's an addition to it. So they have to make sure it makes sense for them, because when you sell an investment, usually you're taking that money, you're putting in a different investment vehicle, right? And so now this is an added cost, and now it might not make sense for them to do that. And so they might just refinance it and purchase another property and build their portfolio that way, which means this is less supply coming onto the market.
And there's one more thing I want to get into that I think most people won't know that'll affect them. But unfortunately, if someone passes away and your family's had like a cottage for years or like a primary residence for years, you're not tax exempt on that. No. So once that's handed over to you, although you might not have an investment property, or people in this kind of society can't even afford to buy a home that are around our age, now that means you're also paying capital gains on that. So if your parents were lucky enough, like mine or yours, to get, a home at a very, very cheap price when they were younger, that we can't afford to at this point, you're getting taxed on that, because those capital gains are definitely over $250,000.
Yeah. So it makes a significant difference. Like we can share on our Instagram what that looks like, but it's a significant difference when you're talking about like $1 million property. That rate, it gets up there. Exactly. Yeah. And one thing else I wanted to say is that I just feel like, so the GDP for Canada is like at a historic low. Especially when you compare it to like the economy of the US, they're producing well. Canada's not producing well. And so a lot of people are investing in other countries, which increases their GDP and not ours. And by implementing this capital gains, you're just making it a point for investors to look in other countries to buy properties, investments in other countries, instead of helping entrepreneurs within the country to make it more productive. And I think that's just like kind of sad that we're moving away from that.
There's always two sides to it, right? And I like to look, my Gemini self, look at the other side of, well, this is a way to make housing more affordable, because that means that people that can afford it will start to be able to afford it because investors aren't buying out properties. How many times have you and I got outbid on a house when our first-time home buyers only have a set limit, right? Mm-hmm. So I think some of these changes, although we might not like them, they are overall for the bigger picture of it. There are loopholes that even you can think of in like 2 seconds, but there's so much more we could get into with this. And I think we'll produce some more content and reels to talk about that. But for now, this was our first episode, so bear with us. Don't lose us yet. Don't unfollow, subscribe, follow, look out for more kind of information and tips. And we're going to kind of get the hang of it. But this is the first one, so go easy on us.
Yeah, let us know your thoughts on what you think about the overall episode. We would love to hear your feedback and criticism if you have it.
Don't be so mean to me. Thanks, everyone.
On to the next one. Bye.